Okay, let me show you the parts of a hive. This is a shallow box. It is the smallest of the hive boxes that I use. It's generally a box you would put on the top so the bees can put honey in those frames. You use this for honey frames, and the reason it's smaller is so that it's lighter to carry. Okay, this is a typical hive. It's a deep box. I tend to use more medium boxes. I actually don't have a medium box in here, but this is a standard deep box. So let me just show you the parts. It's the lid. See what the inside of the lid looks. This one I believe is made out of cypress. Typically, or not typically, a lot of the ones I get have a metal coating on top of it. It's probably aluminum, and that just helps it to last. We typically have an inner cover. This is my inner cover. It's just a piece of wood. This has never had bees in it, but this inner cover has been in the hive. You can see all the propolis, the kind of glue that the bees put in there. So it lays on top. It has a hole in the middle. Now sometimes I will put internal feeders on my hives. So here's a sample internal feeder. It's like this one has some ants in it. You can wash it out, but you have a cup in the middle, and that's what the cup looks like. Here's the centerpiece. Now here's what it looks like on the inside. That is aimed down toward the hive, and so the bees can go up through that hole right there. And they can come from the inside around the outside and get to the sugar water that's down in the bottom. That cup being on top of it keeps the bees from getting out in the sugar water and drowning. So this is the little cup that goes on top of the entrance, and it's got little slits on it down here, and that allows the sugar water to come in so that they can get sugar water without getting out in the sugar water itself and drowning. So that would be right there, but you can see when I do that, it makes it hard for me to put my lid on. So I have several size boxes that I can put on that are just designed to contain my inner feeder. This one you can see is too thin. Here's another one. It looks like it's deep enough, and then I have some that stand a little bit taller if I want to use another kind of feeder. Let's see what I can find here. Yeah, here we go. Sometimes I'll turn a pint jar upside down. I'll poke holes in it and I'll turn it upside down on here. In fact, let me just walk over here and get one and I'll show you. All right, so this is just a pint jar. It's got holes in the top of it, and I can fill that with sugar water. Now I can take that and turn it upside down right on top of it. So then I don't want to just leave it like that because there's a hole around. It doesn't completely cover that hole in the middle. All right. So you can see there's still a hole there around the outside of it. I don't want rain and attacking insects and so forth to get in there. I'll put that there. And what I'll do is I'll put this on there, and it's tall enough that it completely surrounds that jar, Then I can put a lid on it, and then they can enter from the inside and drink that sugar water that's dripping down very slowly, but then other insects can't get to it. So anyway, that's my array of feeder covers or feeder boxes. I have about 3 different sizes of those. Now, what this is part of an entrance reducer, and this is actually a special entrance that is designed to keep beetles from getting into your hive. You've got all of these holes here, and so the bees can land on that and go into the hive, but the beetles fall through the holes, and it helps to keep beetles out of your hive. Now, normally an entrance like this would go all the way across. It just slides into that crack. This one has broken on this end, but normally it would go all the way across, and then your opening would be this opening here. And that's just, you'll hear a lot of beekeepers talk about entrance reducers. It allows them to adjust the size of the opening. I can make this whole opening with one of these. I can make it 3 different sizes. All right, so take my inner cover off. And inside you've got frames. Now, I talked about some frames a few moments ago. So this is a deep frame, is what it looks like. Now this particular one, I don't have any in here that have foundation. Okay, when I talk about foundation, here's what I'm talking about. Okay, when I talk about foundation, this is beeswax foundation that you can hang inside the frame, and that's what I prefer to do. But sometimes that's not an option. So, on this frame, this was a homemade frame that Mr. Leon Edwards gave me, and I had some scrap foundation. I don't know if you can see, it's just a little strip across here. So what I did is I just had that one little strip of foundation, and I just kind of did a homemade rigging that would hold that foundation in there. I just took some scraps of pieces of wood, put them right up against that foundation, nailed them in place, and that foundation is not going anywhere. So when I put that in the hive, the bees will start with that beeswax foundation, and they'll start building the comb down, and they'll eventually fill out this whole frame. Now I also have in here some plastic frames. They're not my favorite, but generally these are coated in beeswax, and that helps the bees get started. I bought some of these from a beekeeper who was getting out of the business, and I have used them, and the bees will work them. My experience has been they don't work them as quickly as the other ones. It's much slower, but it's okay. I was glad to have them. It'll save me some money in the long haul. So there are 10 frames that I have in this hive. So let me see if I can tilt it up. So that's what it looks like from the top. It's got these frames, and you have a little lip. So the top edge is wider than the inside edge, and it leaves there's a little lip across here and across here. So you'll see that all the frames stick out a little bit on either end, and so they catch on that lip. And beekeepers over the years have found there's a perfect space for bees. It's called bee space. So I don't know if you can see. I'll bring one on over closer. But you've got a little piece that sticks out on each of these frames on either side. And when they butt up against each other, it leaves a crack in here, and that's the perfect space for bees to go up and down and over and go wherever they need to be. If there's too much space, the bees will fill it in with comb. We'll end up with what you call crazy comb, and it'll end up sticking to the sides, and it just makes a mess. And so it's important that when you put your frames in or you take them out for inspection, that you butt them back up against each other so that the bees don't put a crazy comb in the space that is left behind. So, get one of these wax and let's bring it over here. So, you'll notice right there, it sticks out a little bit on either side, and when the frame on the other side, when the other frame is right up against it, it leaves the perfect space for bees right in the middle. Now, in this hive, I've got some with starter strips, like I showed you a few moments ago. It's just got a little bitty strip of foundation. But then I've also have some plastic ones that have full plastic foundation, and typically I would put one that only has a starter strip in between two that have full foundation, whether it's beeswax foundation or plastic foundation. It's what the box looks like from the bottom. Okay, so this is a screened bottom. So you can see it has a screen in the bottom of this hive. So here's where they would go in. They would crawl across that screen and then climb up or fly up into the hive. Now, the value of this screening is, first of all, some of the insects, hive beetles, etc., that bother them, if they fall, will fall, especially the mites, more so than the hive beetles. They will fall through that meshing and out of the hive, which is a good thing. Now, you can put in the hive, in the winter I will put in a piece of wood, or we can put in some of this. It's basically what election signs are made out of. Put those in the bottom of the hive, or slide up under this frame, because in the winter you don't want all that air going up through there. So let me show you. On the back of this hive, back of this base, there's a slit right there. Okay, so you take this, it goes in that slot, and it slides up in the hive. And so when you do that, and you can see the air is cut off in the bottom of the hive. That can also be helpful to put in there to see if you've got mites, because mites will fall down through that screen. They'll fall out of the hive off of the bees from time to time, and so what they'll do is they'll land on this bottom, and up against that white background they show up pretty well, so that can be handy. Some people prefer solid bottom hives. I will show you a solid bottom one here in a moment. I tend, because I live in Alabama and it's very hot, I tend to prefer the screen bottom ones. We just have a lot more hot weather, and I like to be able to cool them off. And so for this particular one, this part comes off, and so this is the landing base. And I bought this from Mr. Albert Zook. It's who I get a lot of my hive parts from. And then I buy them unpainted and then paint them up. So those are the parts of your standard hive. Now I'll go and get you a solid bottom, just a very simple solid bottom, and I'll bring it and show it to you. Okay, here is just a simple solid bottom hive. Now what these are is, we call them beetle barns. And it's what we use to catch hive beetles. And you put poison inside. Like this one's gotten mildewed, it's been setting up. I haven't used this in a bit. But you put poison in there. It has entrances on all sides. The beetles will go in there, and actually often the bees will drive the beetles in there, and that's where things will end for them. So this is just a standard solid bottom for a hive. So you see that that's actually a shallow box. The one on the right is the smallest frame I use. If I use a deep box, I use it on the bottom of the hive. If I use a shallow frame, I'm going to use it up high on the hive. And so this is, what a solid bottom one would look like, and then you put your outer cover on top of that. Okay, that's just for those who may not have seen the makeup of a beehive. Hope you found that interesting, and I hope you have a blessed day.